Hi everyone. Thank you Skilling team for introducing me to the team. This is my first webinar ever, so I hope I'll make good use of this time provided. And today's main topic, I'll be talking about microprocessors and microcontrollers, their similarities and differences. So the core agenda is to talk about microprocessors and microcontrollers. So this talk is about 45 minutes to 50 minutes, and we will have some 10 minutes for questions towards the end. Coming to the topic, out of many subjects engineering students study, this particular topic is a special topic. This topic is a gateway to the entire semiconductor and embedded systems industry. Okay, if you are good in this particular domain, if your fundamentals are strong, if you are good in the concepts, you can have a good career in the semiconductor and embedded systems industry. So basically my idea is, for this talk, my idea is to give you some history, review some of the concepts, and discuss about specific details on microcontrollers and microprocessors. So like I said, the agenda is history. We'll see history quickly. Talk about some related concepts like computer architecture, organization, what are the different kinds of computers, why they came into existence, etc. And towards the end, we will look at microprocessors, microcontrollers, what are their features, etc. And we will also have a small discussion about job opportunities in this particular domain. So that is the agenda. Okay, when it comes to the history, all of you, if you are even 1 year 1 year engineering graduates, even if you are in your first year, somewhere you must have read about analytical machine, which is developed by Charles Babbage. You might have heard about another person, Ada Lovelace. So these two are the first people who worked with the concept of computer, the idea of the computer. Before that also there are other concepts that were there. People tried to build mechanical devices to do the computation and all. But these two are the first people who established certain concepts related to computers, the idea of computers. And these are from 1820s. So both actually Ada worked with Charles Babbage on the analytical machine. It's a mechanical machine device. If you Google analytical machine, you can find more details about how it looks and all. But this is the starting point for the idea of using a machine to do the mathematics, to do the computing. Okay. The next thing I want to bring your attention, primarily to drive the concept of computer, I want you to look at this picture on this slide. So here the computer is the person, not the machine here. So there is a machine here, and then there is a person, and this person by her job is called as computer. And most of the times these computers, they are normally very good in mathematics. They are essentially mathematics graduates from universities, and they used to work in places like IBM, NASA during 1920s, 1930s, that time. So in India, we used to call them as clerks. In banks and all, we used to have these clerks who used to write the entrance exam for mathematics, analytical skills. They used to write that. And now also, I think if you are appearing for a bank exam, the exam will be in analytical skills, mathematics and all. So these people, particularly this group of people, they are called as computers by profession. So they are human computers. Then there is a movie made on this lady. It got an Oscar also. Mary W. Jackson. There is a movie made on her. She is also a famous computer. Okay. So like they are well versed and they are able to solve complex problems. So people are working happily. They are a lot of people are getting jobs. A lot of people are working as computers in NASA or IBM or big organizations. They are happy. But what is the problem here when they are working? So the job involves three things. They have to do the same calculations every day. They have to do whatever calculations they are doing. They have to do it very fast, and they have to remember what they have done yesterday. So you see the functions of these people. These people are doing repetitive steps. They are doing fast calculations, and they are remembering. And they have to remember formulas. They have to remember what's the work done yesterday. So all these activities they are performing. Scientists sat together and they thought a lot of people, lot of mathematicians, they are spending this time for hours, 8 hours a day, from morning to evening, only doing mathematics, only doing calculations, and they are getting bored. And eventually, after 5-6 years, if you are every day, if you are doing same formula, same calculation to get some result, eventually you will start getting bored. You want to do something else, and this is so much laborious work. uh, Scientists thought, okay, we should have a better way to deal with this situation. We have to build something which can automate things. And this idea of automating things started in 1820 at the time of Charles Babbage. And it for 100 years people are doing mathematics by hand. And by 1920s there is a job called computers. People are sitting in offices and doing mathematics, but they are also facing problems because a lot of manual work is involved. So the scientists thought, okay, let us find out what are the common things that are there in these people. What are the common functions of these people? So the scientists decided, they found out that they are doing repetitive steps, fast calculations, they are remembering, they are making logical decisions. So they do some math and whether to give this calculation to the next person, next computer, whether to give it or not. That logical decision they are making. Also, while doing the calculations, they are making logical decisions. And then they are applying their own intelligence to decide whether the computation is done properly or not, or whether it is meeting the requirement or not. Okay. So they identified 5 major steps. Repetitive steps, people are doing repetitive steps. Fast remember this terminology, because this is the basis for the concept of computers. Any computer you see. Okay. So repetitive steps, fast calculations, remembering or memory, logical decisions, and intelligence. 5 steps. So these scientists, they spent time, they figured out that okay, we have all these numbers, we can represent every information in the world with codification, some kind of coding we can do. Something like A means 1, B means 2, something like Z means 27. So they were able to convert every information present in the world into they were able to convert every information present in the world into something called as not something called as every information in the world into digits. Okay. So they started the first step. What they figured out is we can convert every information in the world into digits. We can represent every information using digits. That is the first fundamental they figured out. And then means it was figured out before, but that is established at this time. So they ended up with the idea of digital computer. So they thought, okay, let us build a digital computer which deals with digits. Okay, digits are in a binary system, it is 0 and 1. In a decimal system, it is 0, 1, 2 up to 9. It is in a hexadecimal system, it is 0 to 16. Octal system, it is 0 to in hexadecimal 0 to 15, and octal it is 0 to 7. So they kind of said, okay, let us try to codify all these numbers. So they came up with different representation formats. While this is happening during 1930s, 1920s, while this is happening, there is something else also happening. The world wars are happening, and the communication also need to happen not in plain text but in codified text, encrypted text. Okay, otherwise enemy will know what you are telling. So these all these techniques related to codification evolved during this time of 1920s and 1930s to the next level. And then they came up with an idea called as okay, let us standardize codes for use in computers, and concepts like BCD, binary coded decimal system, and ASCII codes, they all evolved later based on this idea. So this is the fundamental idea. We can represent all the information using digits. So then what I will say is, if you want to understand more about these concepts, there is a subject called digital logic design. If you, not just the logic diagrams and all, but why digital logic design came into existence, who developed all those concepts. If you go and search the answers to these questions, then you will get more details on these concepts. So digital logic design is another important subject. So scientists found out, they developed this concept of digital computer, and they were able to solve the problems like repetitive steps, fast calculation, remembering, logical decisions, and intelligence related activities happening now, right? Our generation, current generation, is seeing all the activity related to intelligence. The research was done long ago, but we are seeing the implementation now. So the fifth item in the 5 items I told before, the fifth item related activity is happening in a big scale right now. But it took like another 100 years, right? From 1920 to 2020. Another when we come to the concepts, okay. So we saw what is a computer, what is a digital computer, what is a human computer, why computers came into existence, and then let us look at the concept of computer. So Alan Turing, he is the guy you should know. He's like Wright brothers for aeroplane. How Wright brothers are credited with aeroplane, making aeroplane. Alan Turing is credited with building the modern computer. Okay, he came up with the concept of stored program computer. Okay, so he said that you can build a machine which can take a sequence of instructions from a stored device, and it can execute one after another each of these instructions, and process a given input and process certain expected output if the instructions are right. He is the one who said that, and he is the one who introduced the idea of garbage in, garbage out. So if you are not writing your program correct, if you are not doing or if you are, even if you write the program correctly, and if you give incorrect data to the program, the output you get is incorrect. So this kind of concepts he developed, and he mathematically proved that you can have computers built. He proved that mathematically, and people started funding this effort. That's when companies said, okay, let us put our money in building computers, because it is now mathematically proved. If you realize something important here, anytime a mathematician or a scientist proves something, that's when the companies will start investing money in it. Till then, companies will try to spend their money in other places. So he is significant because of that reason. He mathematically proved that computers can be built. Okay, the next going to the, and similarly, this guy also got a movie on him. That movie, Imitation Game. You might have heard about it. This is also an Oscar winner, I guess. And in this movie, they didn't talk about his papers on computers. but they talk more about his cryptographic related skills. He cracks some cryptographic codes using the coding techniques that were developed then. So let us come to the next topic, microcomputer. So this is the first time we are seeing the word micro, right? We are interested in microprocessors and microcomputers. We have seen human computers, we have seen digital computers. Now let us talk about microcomputers. So if you see again, um, before this microcomputer came into existence, a lot of effort went towards building a computer using the available technology. During 1930s, when Alan Turing proposed that computer can be built, he proposed it during 1930s. Okay, and von Neumann proposed that proposed a specific architecture in 1940. Okay, so they proposed it. They said that yes, like this we can do, but the technology was not there at that time. All that they had is diodes and triodes, which are built with valves, glass tubes, and these glass tubes used to generate huge heat. If you touch your tube light, you will know what I am talking. Okay, and the tube light, if you touch, it will be very hot, right? So these glass tubes used to produce a lot of heat. If you put these glass tubes one next to another to perform certain actions, the heat generated is so high. At that time, the AC technology is also limited. So the cost of building a computer is too huge, but conceptually, these guys said, yes, computers can be built. And then by 1948-47, more and more technology developed, and the first computers, ENIAC and ENIVAC, ENIAC, ENIVC, ENIAC and ENIVAC were built. And these are not microcomputers. These are mammoth computers, you should say. They are huge. They occupied big rooms. They used to generate huge heat, and they are operated with dials and switches and sometimes plugs. So you have to go manually insert a plug, or you have to manually switch on a switch, or you have to manually rotate a dial to enter a number. And these computers used a digital system known as decimal system. They use 0 to 9 numbers. So like our old telephones, we used to have 10-digit dials or 10 switches. But by the time 1955 came, another 10 years from then, I think in Bell Laboratories, the scientist there, he found out that transistors can be built using silicon. Basically, he started the semiconductor revolution. He found out that yes, we can use semiconductor material, silicon, to build these diodes, triodes, transistors, and all. So then, because now you are talking about atomic level activity, you are talking about small, you are not talking about walls, but you are talking about material. And now he proved, so the research was done and the concepts were proved again. And first time people realized that yes, we can use less voltage, we can use less space to build computers. So that happened in around 1955. And the idea of microcomputers started at that time. Then companies like Intel, Texas Instruments, Motorola, Zilog. I haven't noted down the dates, but you can again Google easily about the history of these companies. These guys started becoming active. They wanted to build the new small computer, the microcomputer, new computer using this latest advancement in the technology. New material science technology came. They want to take advantage of that. So they started building these computers. And their goal was to build a computer that works with 5 volts with a battery. So, so they are like Google of our times. Now, what is Google? In 2000, when Google started, Google was trying to do something, and it is a startup. In 20 years, it became huge. Like this, Intel was trying to do something in 1965, and by 1980, they became something. They became big. They started building this first set of microprocessors and microcontrollers. So by definition, A microcomputer is a smaller digital computer using silicon transistors. That's all. That is a microcomputer. So when we look at the concepts of building these computers, so we have seen different computers. We are in the era of, or currently the current era is a microcomputer era, and it is going on from 1975, 1960, 65, 75 time period. And more advances came. We are making smaller computers, and further smaller computers, and now we are moving into quantum computing. That is the next big technology that is happening. We are moving into next level computing. So so different concepts. So these concepts are common to any computer, whether it is the mammoth computer, that is ENIAC type of computer, or the smallest computer that we are able to build as of today. The basic concepts remain same. All the computers are dependent on coded systems, particularly numbers. They are all dependent on numbers, digits. They are dependent on digits, and they are all digital computers. This is the fundamental concept. And the number systems, all of you might have heard, read, the popular number systems are binary, decimal, octal, and hexadecimal. So binary is the most popular because that is easy to represent with voltages, 0 and 5 volts. 0 volt is 0, 5 volts is, anytime you see 5 volts, it is 1, anytime you see it is 0 volts, it is 0. But to talk about a small interesting point, there are other systems also. In a company where I worked, which stores data in basically flash devices. That company used to build flash memory, right? Which is used in our mobile phones, our pen drives and all. To use less number of transistors, what they did is they used 3-digit system. It is not binary, it is not octal, it is a 3-digit system. So the 3-digit system is 0 to 1.5 volts is 0, 1.5 volts to 2.5 volts is 1, 2.5 volts to 5 volts is 2. So you have 3-digit system, and their entire application software is built on top of 3-digit system. So there used to be a microprocessor next to this memory, which used to take the 2-digit system, the binary data that is coming in, and depending on what data that has come, it used to convert that binary data that is coming in, and it used to store it in the 3-digit system. That way they were able to use less material to build the semiconductor memory, to build the flash memory. So like this, there will be many customized systems, but in our textbooks, the most popular ones we study are binary, decimal, octal, and hexadecimal. And you should know how to perform operations on these systems, like addition, subtraction, multiplication, division, all those. And one interesting another point here is digital logic design. Particularly that subject talks about how to study the digital systems, how to deal with digital systems, how to add, subtract, multiply, divide, binary system, decimal system, octal, and hexadecimal. Binary, hexadecimal are being most popular and mostly used in our digital computers right now. So in your digital logic design, you end up studying mostly binary and hexadecimal. You don't study so much about decimal and octal, but remember that they exist. So continuing on the concepts. So when the definition for data, if we see, we said that, okay, all the data can be stored as digits. So that is the definition. So what is the kinds of data that we have? We have numbers, we have letters, we have words, we have pictures, we have videos, we have speech. So many types of data is there. Now the idea behind computers has gone to the next level, where it said, okay, we have all these kinds of data, let us convert this data and store it in digital format. And how do you deal with this data? You need instructions to process this data. You need instructions to add, subtract, multiply this data, which are your arithmetic operations. You need to decide whether to store some data, whether to leave some data. So you need to make logical decisions. If this data is correct, then store it. If this data is not correct, don't store it. or if this condition met, do the calculation. If this condition is not met, don't do the calculation. Similarly, directional instructions. Okay, when you are storing the data, you store the data in memory, you store the data in some other place, or you send this data to some device. So those are directional instructions. So primarily instructions have been three types of instructions: arithmetic, that is adding, subtracting, multiplying; logical for decision making; and directional is telling where to move the data, where to put this data. So we can group broadly like that. And further concepts. So now we talked about instructions here, right? We have multiple instructions. When we put all this, like I said, Alan Turing, he said that you can put instructions in a device, multiple instructions in a device, and you can store these instructions in a place. So a stored procedure is a collection of instructions stored in memory so that it can be retrieved later for doing further processing. Okay, so it can be loaded by another device or another component, whatever it is. So it can be stored to do further activities. So that is stored procedure. So a digital computer can work with stored procedures as long as the stored procedure is working with digital data, okay, digitized data. Then don't get confused between these two terms. Stored procedure is a set of instructions which the computer can understand. Algorithms is sequence of steps to achieve something. Normally, algorithms are written in human readable form so that humans can understand. The algorithms are not meant for computers. Algorithms are meant for humans. So humans can see, okay, add A, B, subtract C, and then store the subtracted value. So this is algorithm. If you work, some of you might have worked with stacks. I don't know, some of you just remember, if you have not worked with data structures, just remember that data structures is a subject that talks about different types of algorithms. Just remember that. If you have worked with data structures, pretty much in the data structures, what you see is algorithms. And when we are writing programs, we are effectively converting these algorithms into stored procedure. You may ask me, why are you talking about all these concepts before microcontrollers and microprocessors? I'll come to that. When we look at microprocessor, microcontroller, you will relate them. And then we have multiple programming languages to convert these algorithms, the human readable instructions, the ideas of human beings with respect to calculations and storing data, into stored procedure. A stored procedure, which is nothing but a program. Later on, we started calling them as programs. So languages, in this particular case, we are talking about languages specifically used to communicate with digital computers. But in general, what is a language? It is a way of communicating with others. It involves sounds, words, signs, right? We remember this fundamental concept is where we are going as of today. We are when you say hey Google or okay Google, you are using sound to communicate with a computer using English. And we are telling hey Google, get some email or send email. Then what is happening? You are using sound to communicate with the device. And the mobile phone is a digital device. Mobile phone being a digital device, it is taking your input as a sound input. It is converting, the sensor there is converting that sound input into digital form, and then it is giving to the internal computer, and that internal digital computer is processing that and performing an action, right? So we are using different methods of communicating. And if you see some of the YouTube videos, you can see hand gesture recognition. That is the latest trend in artificial intelligence, right? There are many YouTube videos where everybody tries to show that they have developed something which recognizes hand gestures and speech recognition, words. So we are trying to move from a sophisticated programming language to human languages, but we are going. So basically, the idea of languages is common wherever we go. That's what I want to tell here. Whether it is programming language, whether it is human language, the idea of language is same everywhere. Okay. And when it comes to digital computer ecosystem, see, I am specifically using the word digital computer throughout the presentation. Digital computer ecosystem, we ended up with so many devices. That's all I wanted to say here. We have all these devices which can connect to a digital computer, and we can transfer codified data, means converted data. So here what we are doing, we are converting from one form, sound form, text form, into digital form, and we are giving it to the digital computer. And again, digital computer performs different operations, and again it gives the digital data. That digital data will be again converted back to human understandable form by these devices like printers, or in audio device case it will be uh, something like a audio player, MP3 player. So it takes the digital values, it converts, and it gives audio music to us.